Hi, my name is Willie, and today we're going to talk a little bit about AN fittings and lines. Okay, these things are sort of renowned for leaking. I've heard Eric the car guy on YouTube talk about them leaking before. As for what kind it was exactly, hard to say, but I imagine it was probably the threaded type instead of the crimped type. And Craig Durbin on YouTube, part of the Small Engine Nation, by the way, had mentioned that they're nice and at least until they leak. So obviously I'm a little bit concerned with leaks, and I'm using this for my bypass oil filter, which I'll show in the tractor when we get over there, which also acts as somewhat of an oil cooler. Matter of fact, after it's filtered, it runs through a little tiny oil filter before running back into the crankcase. And one of the problems is this is threaded. Okay, now here's just a regular in-tank fuel shutoff. It's got threads on one side, nipples on the other. Obviously a fuel line is designed to go on regular style nipples because they're a smooth ring all the way around. But threads, while you can squeeze this line on it, the pipe threads is a continuous valley all the way around till you get to the ends of the threads. So I've done this before on snowblowers just to make things work. Stick that on the threaded side, but eventually they wind up leaking anyway at some point or another. So as you can imagine, being that these are threads, these can leak. Being that you're sticking the line in here and then threading this nipple into the actual hose. Here's a piece of that hose. You normally slide it in here into that piece first, which I'll show in a little bit. But obviously, the oil can follow these threads from down there out to the end. Don't know why the focus isn't working too good today. But that being said, I'm going to try and take some precautions, because this is new territory for me working with AN fittings. I'm going to use some black RTV because this is going to be used for engine oil. Sorry. Going to use some black RTV on these threads and inside of here to help seal that up. Okay. So now I'll get to replacing that line. So let's go over to the tractor and see how far I've gotten. This is how far I got so far. How this is working is we take high pressure from the engine and it's going to come into this filter, and there's a little tiny orifice. I don't even think it's a 1/16 inch hole, and it feeds this filter, and then the outcoming oil after it's filtered goes back to the crankcase over here. I'm going to have it come up under here into this nipple, and then out of this nipple back into the block right here. Okay. You gotta cut that hose a size soon. Now, one thing I added here to make this serviceable, which I had mentioned in other videos, if I have to get this blower cover off, I need to get this firewall off. So I want to make it so I can get these apart. So this is the one line already done right here. This is the other line that's going to go to the other side of the motor. I put a connector here, a male to male connector. So when I want to unhook the line going to the other side of the block, I can unhook this and then connect these two hoses together, this hose to that hose. Matter of fact, I can unhook that right here. Let me get that unhooked quick. Okay, that way I can take this out without losing any of the oil out of here, and I can get a cap and put a cap on here, or even just put a plug inside the hole. And that'll make that a little bit easier to get out of the way, so I can get all that apart. Okay, so where we're at now is I'm going to be cutting this line, and it's very important when you cut this line that you don't have these flared out, otherwise it's really difficult to get them inside the fittings, which I'll show you when we get over there. Okay, so I know this fitting from the outgoing is going to sit right about here, so that's going to be right around here. And this is going to come up to right about there. And I had marked using these two zip ties where that cut's going to be. Let's go stick that in the vise. Okay, now I'm going to cut right between these two zip ties right here. And these zip ties are nice and tight, and that's going to keep that from fraying after I cut it. You could use electrical tape. A lot of people have used electrical tape, but the problem with electrical tape is once you hit it with the grinder, it gets hot, and it'll start to loosen up a little bit, and it can still fray a little bit. Granted, the electrical tape is better than nothing. The correct tool that would be sold from Summit is a set of cutters that cuts it clean. But those cutters cost money. Granted, they are better because then you don't get debris in your line. Now, I had mentioned using the Permatex earlier for on those fittings. So some of that Permatex is going to get inside this hose. Because this oil is going back into the crankcase, that's not really going to hurt anything. But if you're running, say, an oil cooler, and it's all under pressure, and it's going back into the oil galleries of an engine, I suggest not using RTV because the RTV could get into a bearing, like a rod bearing or a main bearing, and cause damage. So that's not going to be the case for this situation, but just a heads up for something like that. So while you're sitting here and watching, I'm going to stick this in the vise here and then I'll cut it. And we can take our bolt tie right off. Sorry I had to pause you guys. Anyway, she's all cut. Now I can take this off. And now we just want to clean all the junk from out of there. I have a hose right here. We can blow this line out. Okay, now I'm going to bring you guys over on the bench and we'll continue doing this fitting. I mean, like I was saying earlier, this is all experimental. I'm not saying go out and do this yet. If I do get any more information after a year or two, I'll put the information in the comments below of the video. This is just how I'm going to be doing it for now on this. So we're going to put this in to the sheath. You see that okay? Yep. Oh, I almost forgot a step. I know sometimes this line isn't always centered or opened up all the way in here. So I take something with a taper on it, a tapered pin. And after I get the hose seated in here all the way, then I'll run this in here. And that'll open up that line a little bit. And I'll put this on the threads in this fitting, and a little bit on the line. Just give a nice little coating in there. And I'll allow this to slide on there. Now, I have had one actually kink up on me before I reamed this out. It was actually kinking up the line in there inside, where the tube was actually getting folded inside pretty bad. So this has been working pretty good. Another tool they have for doing these, they actually have aluminum adjustable wrenches or aluminum wrenches. So when you tighten these down, it doesn't mar the aluminum. I'm not too worried about whether or not I scratch the finish on here, honestly. I don't like to spend a whole lot of money. But I do like to make things easy to work on. So that's the whole idea of using these lines, is easy serviceability. So that's our line. This is going to go over the nipple on the radiator in the tractor, which I'll bring up on the table right now, and we'll stick that on. I got another trick I'm going to use on that. Okay? So I'm going to put you guys on pause, and I'll bring it back on. Okay? Okay. Okay, I've already taken the liberty of putting some heat shrink over here. And I have a heat gun right here. And this is the nipple we're going to be going on. This is going to be facing towards the front of the motor right here. So I'm not sure if this is going to go on too easy or if it's going to fight me. So we'll just have to wait and see. If I have to heat it up, I can. In fact, I'm going to have to take this heat shrink back off and put the fitting on, or the hose clamp on first. Heat shrink's going to keep this nice and tidy so for when I put the clamp on, so I don't get any pieces of metal sticking out. So if I ever decide I want to take this clamp off in the future, I don't get stabbed by it. So let's see if it's going to play ball. Nope. So let's heat her up. Oh yeah, piece of cake. Now tighten her up. Okay, should be pretty good. I don't think that's going to leak. Okay, she's nice and neat. No wire sticking out anywhere. The plastic overlapped that a little bit. Okay, so let's go put it on the tractor now. Okay, so this is going to be my outlet. It's going to come up here, into the filter and out. Here's my connector, so I can put these two together to pull that assembly out, and it goes right around the front. Into the bottom of this, up, and out into the crankcase. This is my drain plug as well. Okay. So there's a little bit of a project update for you. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, make sure you give me a thumbs up, and have a good day. Bye.